Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Smart Building Conference 2025 at ISE. I hope you all enjoyed your garden lunch. Thank you, Max and Space Tea, for sponsoring that. It's nice to see the sun if we're from Northern Europe. So, moving on with our agenda, we're going to go into how to operationalize smart buildings, lessons learned and best practices. Something that takes advantage of the experience of our next speakers. Kevin Brownell, who is the director of Nuxform. Please come on up, Kevin. Dan Drogman, who is the founder and CEO of Smart Spaces. Tomas Mac Eoin, who is the CEO of Hereworks. And Conor Cleary, Associate Digital Lead Ireland for NDY, who's going to be moderating for us. Conor, I'm going to turn it over to you, pal. You're in the first seat, right?
Cheers for that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Afternoon all. Can you hear me? Yeah. Afternoon all. Thanks for coming today to our talk on how to operationalize smart buildings, lessons learned and best practices. So apologies for the notes. I was a super sub last minute. Unfortunately, Kate couldn't make it today, so you're stuck with me. Just going to introduce the team here. They're going to kind of let you know what they're about and what they do. So we start with Kevin Brownell. He's director of Nuxform.
Thanks, Conor. Thanks for stepping in. Yeah, great job. So I'm Kevin Brownell. I'm a smart building consultant. We're all experts in the room, so I don't need to explain what we do necessarily, but kind of what my piece to talk about today is the journey basically around smart, where we start and then where we carry on through. So in collaboration with my colleagues.
And next is Tomas Mac Eoin. He's the CEO of Hereworks.
Yeah, how are you? Thanks, Conor. And yeah, so we're Hereworks. We are a smart building contractor, essentially. So we will take your smart building project, and much like a general contractor in construction terms, we'll take your project and we'll hand it over to you fully delivered, and then we actually manage it thereafter as well through a service we call our subject matter expert service, which takes, I suppose, a lot of what our speakers were talking about all morning is, and I think Matthew put it well, we're really focused, on the construction phase of a project from REBA stages 1 to 6, but we rarely look at the operational phase thereafter, and we're not fully embracing that. So our services, we take a design from the likes of Kevin here, and we construct then the digital building right from the foundations, which would be the data layer, through to the hardware that goes into the buildings, maybe to augment the existing building systems, so things like space analytics, things like IEQ, and then finally the software layers. We would work with the likes of Dan here. So.
Yeah, thank you. So hi everyone, I'm Dan Drogman. Nice to see some familiar faces out there today. Smart Spaces is a smart building operating system, so we provide a way for real estate owners and enterprise companies to operate their workspace. And so we take all the hard work that these chaps do and put the cherry on top and take all credit for all the stuff they've done on the way. But no, certainly we're going to talk to you today about the challenges we have when operating a smart building.
Thanks, Dan. Kevin, could you begin discussing the importance of engaging the FM team early on in the process?
Yeah, I think the challenge we've got, and the irony actually, is that we are talking about technology that breaks down silos, yet our kind of client base and our people on that part of that team are in silos. They're not fully engaged in the project or in the smart elements of the project. So I think that's our challenge. As smart building consultants, we're often kind of relationship managers as well. So it's like a counselling session to get people engaged and involved, because ultimately the people that are going to run the building need to be involved very early on. But it's also the project team, M&E colleagues, etc., all need to be very much involved early on in the project. And that's our goal really, is to try and bring that group of people together to understand what that journey looks like, to make sure that we optimise it, and that people that turn up with the keys don't necessarily come to a building that they don't know how to operate. But the other thing is that we don't finish when the hand keys are handed over. That's really, as Matthew pointed earlier on, REBA Stage 7 in use is kind of where it all starts to happen. So people like ourselves are very much involved still in the project at that point.
I think that's important. That's like the forgotten piece of the puzzle a lot of the time,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Just Tomas, onto you. Just could you share a kind of perspective then involving HR and the end users kind of?
Yeah, I've actually, we were having dinner last night, and I got quite animated about it. Just the more and more I was thinking about this panel here today, and listening to everyone this morning in the room. In this room, I think we're quite aligned. We're all, most of us are technologists in some way or another. We've talked from everything from hardware through to software through to AI, and we're quite aligned. But in this whole smart building process, the one thing that has not changed, because we've evolved, I think the industry has evolved, we've finally agreed that actually, and I'm probably pushing my own agenda here, but there's a consensus now that the most valuable use case here is around people. Most of the buildings that we deal with are office-based. They only exist because of the people that house in them. But the one thing that has not changed is the construction process and the facility management process. So how we build buildings and how we operate them. We've been doing it the same, I'm going to say for 30 plus years, but it's probably more than that. And all we've actually done in the smart building world is layered new technologies and new tools on top of old processes. So we're not getting any more efficient. We're getting quite the opposite. We're overcomplicating things. And, when I listen to all the speakers this morning, I was getting quite frustrated that maybe we're preaching to the converted in this room, when really we need to be thinking much bigger than that. How are we going to change how we actually construct buildings? Because I'm going to give an example and then I'll stop talking. So we're in the middle of a 6-month project. I'm not going to mention who. We're 6 months into a project. We have to, when we finish the construction phase of the project, we have to provide our subject matter expert service to the client. So basically what that SME service does is they handhold the client through all the technologies and help them understand and really get more value out of the data, out of the insights. 6 months into the project, we still have no clarity on who our SME will be dealing with. Who will the facility management people be? We can't get proper contact with the IT people, even who are going to operate it. We can, we can get in contact with them in terms of the network, but in terms of how it's actually going to be operated, and indeed the workplace managers. And this is a common theme. Everyone's just fixated on the construction project, get it from stage 1 to 6, and then throw it over the wall, and a facility manager who has a contract that's so restrictive they've no room for proactivity to take any learnings from the data. And nobody's consulted them.
Yeah, where do I start? So interestingly is I've actually done both of their roles, not very well, but because Smart Spaces has been in the market, well, the company was founded 15 years ago. I think in anger, we probably had our smart building operating system out there for about 9 years now. And 9 years ago, we didn't have many smart building consultants to work with. Literally, we were selling the product to the end user, to the landlord, and we sort of had to consult them on what they wanted from the platform. And then they would want an end use case that required sensors, network infrastructure, and all the things to allow our system to operate. And so we would also do the MSI piece, but from an installation. So we are the consultant, we're installing all the cabling, all of the sensors, working with all the different BMS manufacturers, the lighting companies to integrate with our platform, then deliver the operating system. And it was hell. We actually started not to enjoy what we was doing. We love developing software. And we also started to add a lot of headcount that wasn't really productive for what we wanted to do as a SaaS business. We were adding consultant headcount, engineer headcount. And what's been really nice over that time is the way the market's matured. And now there's a whole host of consultants out there that can help the clients get to the right end use case that they want. Make sure that when we actually quote a project, we're not wasting our time doing 50 revisions or just pie in the sky proposals. And then someone's got more construction knowledge, putting all the sensors. We don't like to get our hands dirty at Smart Space. If we can avoid going up a ladder, we're happy. And that then just really helps us focus on what we do best. And we've definitely seen that's been transformative for our business. And we also can, blame Tomas when a sensor's down or something, which is quite nice. And he'll come say it's my data layer. Yeah. So as much as, lessons learned, I do think we're getting to a better place, certainly for me anyway. But I think, there's still a lot of challenges to overcome. And I think it's what we find difficulty is when we're novated to a main contractor, and we find that they obviously want to value engineer the project a lot of the time, and they will compromise our decisions. And so we don't get the sensors or the access control readers we need for our software to provide the use case. And I won't mention manufacturers' names today, but we've had many an upset client where we've given a tour of our best building, and so that's what they've got in their head they're buying. We've then given a spec on the different hardware systems which will achieve that exact user experience, and then as it gets closer to the project going live, that hardware's been VE'd for an inferior product, and we can still get it to work. We definitely, I think what we're known for in the industry is, we'll do it. We're yes people. We don't say no to integrating these inferior products, but we have to convey to the client that the user experience won't be as good. And as soon as it goes live, poor old Danny, where's Danny out there, head of customer success, gets about 1,000 support tickets because it's not the user experience that was sold in at the building that we showcased. And yeah, it's really disappointing the client. And then to unravel that, it's too late because that's a lot of cabling, that's a lot of hardware. They're not going to want to go and spend the money to retrofit. And then that building's sort of stuck with that technology layer for a long, long time. And that's what we were looking to avoid. And I think it's one of the lessons we want to learn, that if we can, we'd like to avoid being novated. And it does make sense because we are operational. So typically the main contractor's walking away when our project goes live. So but quite recently we've been novated on 2-3 occasions. So it's interesting. I think that's a mistake that's being made.
A huge mistake, yeah. I think just to add to that as well, things have got a lot better. And I can't remember who was up earlier, and they mentioned about buildings being snowflakes, and I don't know if anyone was at the conference in Denver, the Nexus conference there before Christmas. We really need to get away from thinking of buildings that way. Like, 4 or 5 years ago when we all got here, it was very complex, and it was the systems were very disparate. They still are, but they're a lot less, and they're a lot more interoperable now. It's not as complex. It's not as complex as it was. So the technologies have matured, and again, I'm coming back to this, the technologies have matured, but how we're building buildings hasn't. And that idea that smart should be novated under a main contract, that's just thinking of smart as one piece of the puzzle, like, I don't know, your electrical system. That's not what a smart building is about. Smart building is about, as Bob put it earlier, it's about the digital transformation of the building. You said it. I'm going to steal your thunder here. People move into buildings digitally now, not physically. And they want the building to help transform their business, how people work. We talked about return to office, we talked about pandemic, we talked about shifting work processes. The building and the office, that's where that environment lives. And so smart is that key component in that, and it connects everything else. It connects the electrical system, it connects the mechanical system, it connects the IT system and the operational systems. It is the building. And that's the key difference. So novating it to main contractors who only want to build a shed.
I would add to that, there's an expectation between us, I think, that the consistency of relationship between our various elements must be maintained through the project. Because we are, if you like, think of it as a relay race, the baton is handed over of the customer experience. We're custodians of it, if you like, through that journey. And we're fierce to that, aren't we? We want to deliver what was originally agreed. So value engineering is value in an experience at the end of the day. So there's a reason why we do it this kind of way, but I think it's taken a while for the rest of our co-colleagues, as it were, to catch up with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's just so many touch points now for a digital building that it needs to be thought of a lot sooner. Kevin, maybe you can elaborate a bit more on when you might come onto a project. Typically can be stage 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And
Well, I say Reba stage 7 in use of the existing location, because clearly to understand how the client's using the space then is a good indication as to how it's going to be used going forward. But very early on, I mean, often the case that people like ourselves are appointed to Reba stage 3, and Reba stage 3 is very late, obviously, because everyone else has got an opinion by then, which is not a bad thing. But then you've got to kind of swim upstream to find out what that original quest was from the client. And almost sometimes you're asking repeat questions that have already been asked by all the other design members, so it can be quite frustrating. So we don't want to be a disruptor in that mix. We want to be working in synergy with our fellow colleagues. So, early start's really important.
You're on the back foot kind of from the get-go if you come in that late. And probably similar to you, Tomas, as well, with the construction phase. Like, I think it's a second thought a lot of the time, and potentially not enough time left for you guys to do your roles, and you might just kind of elaborate a bit more on the frustrations there.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. The perfect project, as you say, Kevin is in, maybe in the previous contract. We've walked away from contracts where we're brought in during the construction phase. We tend not to bid on them because it's far too late. You are just going to be shoehorning something in for the sake of it, and I think that's this is not technology for the sake of it. This is digital transformation of how people work and how organisations work.
Yeah, and Dan, I think you probably can echo that a bit again. Maybe you can elaborate a bit more on it.
Well, I'd say that I think that the thing that needs to change, and I think it'd be great for you, both of you, is that the smart building consultant and the MSI should be retained once the building's live for at least 24 months.
Years.
And also because even sometimes the client should have someone that's there during the construction phase and in operation, and hopefully be the same team or same people, because the amount of times we get, the project gets handed over to us and then we deliver it to the operational team and they go, oh no, that's not the way we do work, and actually, why is this in your scope? We don't need that, but can we take that out? Can we swap that for another feature? We're like, well, we've already built this for you, so it's a little bit late for those kind of conversations. I think the smart building consultant's there to make sure that actually we achieve the original vision, and if the client has changed their mind, what happens, it's managed acceptably, and it's not damage to us as a business. And from the MSI perspective, I think, making sure that, these sensors might be perfect on day one, but as soon as you have Cat B fit out, we find we lose visibility of FCUs, of lights, the whole building goes into disarray. And you need someone who's sitting above that and coordinating that to make sure that our software is still operational when the tenants move into the building.
And it's a holistic view as well, because it's not one speciality. You mentioned BMS, but you also have the sensors, you also have the IT systems, you also have HR, you also have the sustainability people, and it's looking across that holistically. That's the service that's required and should be maintained. So it can't be a specialist in one area. It's not just HVAC.
No, definitely.
Very good. Yeah, look, and you've kind of touched on it, I suppose, multi-let buildings, and I suppose continuing to use the smart technology of that building and bringing it on board for the tenancies. Anything to kind of push on that one?
Yeah, definitely. So, so still in my term, moving into the buildings, digitally and physically. Not that they're not going to move in physically, that'd be a real shame for all of us. But just to tap into that, what we're seeing is that people that most HQ buildings aren't a single building anymore. Massive organisations are moving out of single buildings where they controlled the entire building and done whatever they wanted into multi-tenanted buildings, and I think that's where our smart building operating system really helps customers that are moving into a multi-tenant building have it behave as if it was their own building. So if they're using the changing facilities in the basement, or they're using a cafe that's open to the whole building, or the viewing gallery, all of that can be wrapped up into their internal systems. We've even taken it as far as if one of our clients runs out of meeting room space in their level, they automatically get availability in the flex operator, and the flex operator loves that, because typically some of these businesses have downsized too much, and now they're getting a new revenue stream through the shared facilities. But that moving into the building digitally is very much the whole thing. It's not just the floors you've leased, it's having the whole building work for you digitally.
Very good, thanks guys. I think we'll open to the floor. I don't know if anyone has any questions for anyone on the panel. I think we get you, Mike.
Sorry, who had the question? Sorry, who? There you go. Sorry, apologies.
Thank you. Hi, John from Arcadis. Tomas, the contracting thing, good topic. Lessons learned, what is the approach to fixing that? Because it's the same thing recurringly.
Yeah.
what do we do? Because it's always in a design phase. We're trying to figure out how to redirect the procurement methodology for different solutions. So it's a bit naive to think that we're just going to keep complaining
Yeah.
about it's going to get fixed.
Bang on.
So some thoughts, please.
Yeah, and I know I'll get in trouble for this. I got in trouble internally when I suggested it, and especially because I'm from a construction background. If you know, a little tidbit about the Irish, we're very good at building data centres. We build a lot of data centres in Ireland, we build a lot of data centres around Europe. And over the last 10, 15 years, it's moved completely away from building contractors building data centres. So it used to be the big building contractors. Now it's the specialist contractors. So it's the likes of Jones's, the likes of Mercury, the likes of Winthrop, with these massive MEP companies who realize that, look, the building, the shed that is the data center, it's just a shed. But actually the smarts and the key part of it is in the services that go into it. So you found these specialist contractors are now actually the main contractors building data centers. And I use that analogy because I actually think that could be the solution here. That we actually move away from traditional construction contracts to have digital building contractors or smart building contractors actually take the full responsibility for delivering the building from start to end of life, because it's not just a building, and I know I keep repeating this. It's not just until the end of the construction program, and then throw the systems over the wall to the facility managers. Actually, last year, and if you look this up, and I probably should have stuck a slide up. Last year, I spoke about an idea of a framework called Swift HR. There's a blog on our website about it, but it talks about actually reimagining the operational phase of the building as well, and moving away from antiquated facility management contracts. And the reason it's called Swift HR, and I'll not go into it too much, is that HR are key to that. It's because that's why the building exists, is for the people. HR are never at the smart building table. Many people from HR, I asked this question last year, many people from HR are in this room.
Interesting,
Crazy.
though. No, one of our clients, I won't mention the name of the client, but one of our clients, the head of HR, is the one that's taken ownership of our platform and deployed it across Europe and doing a copy and paste. They just want exactly what they've done in London. And because they're the global head of HR, the power they have to deploy quickly.
And I bet it's probably one of your best projects.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And adoption,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of our best case studies.
And you do see in some organisations, facilities actually report into HR, and I think they're the most progressive. Usually they report into finance, but where they report into HR, that's
It should be about people.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
Thanks, guys.
We're out of time,
I
aren't
think
we?
we're out of time, yes. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, guys, for a good chat today. And yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
thanks, guys.